I need a count. Okay, folks, let's get started here for the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 12th. The meeting is being recorded, so if you are recording, please let us know. If you can silence your cell phones, that would be appreciated. We're going to start with the public meeting, public comment. Is anybody here for public comment for our items that are not listed on the agenda? I think Boat Basin is.
I was wondering about the results of your visit to the Nantucket Boat Basin.
That's on the agenda as the.
It is?
Yes, it is. Next item.
Next meeting?
No, next item. Actually, coming right into it. Yeah.
All right, so I can talk to that after I hear.
Yeah, exactly. Just see if there was anything else.
No, I just wanted to put the boat basin in the public comment because I couldn't think anywhere else where to put it.
Okay.
But we usually update on what we did for field viewings there. If you guys wanted a chance to discuss that really briefly.
Okay.
So for the public, the commission had received some concerns about the facilities at the Nantucket Boat Basin and their pump out capabilities and how they managed black and gray water discharges at that facility. So as part of their regular field viewings on Monday, I think everyone that's here was on it. Everyone made it for that portion. I took a tour of the facility with the boat basin staff, but I didn't know if you guys wanted to have any further discussion. I know Mr. Bender is here. He's the one that brought it to our attention and came in to kind of talk about what you saw. If you guys had any follow-up that you wanted to do, to hear any more comments, or to kind of set a direction for that. So we don't normally take field viewings to spots that aren't active applications, so it's a little bit different.
Well, maybe for Steve's benefit, we should just summarize just briefly. And
Sure.
Steve, it seems like a very well-managed facility. They have hookups, all of them down to docks out there, and they have a boat that goes out to visit the moored things. And it seems like it came across like they're doing everything they can do to, provide a service that's available for the boats and to make it very clear to the boaters that they expect them to comply with the regs. And they did mention that they have a poop patrol going out and checking on everybody all the time, but it seemed like it's
right, and plus it was also free. So so if cost was a discouraging factor, it doesn't seem to be an issue. But I was pretty impressed with the cleanup. Pretty numerous, the state of the art equipment, and they said that people could hook up permanently into the system, not just have to be pumped out. Out to the very end, out to the smaller satellite piers. And on both docks as well. I do the gas dock, they said, I think, had them as well.
Mm-hmm. Also return rate, 85%. Every yearly return rate of people that come back is 85%.
Right.
So they know what the facility can offer. So.
Yeah, the only thing that we didn't hear about was from, you're concerned the boat owners felt that it was difficult. I wonder if they do a survey or if they give anybody, just sort of a survey of how well their stay was, how well everything went. And I wonder if they ask anything about that. That might be something that would get the viewpoint from the boaters as well. That might be something that would be interesting to know. But other than that.
Okay, I could, at this point, make a little statement.
Sure.
Of course, when you ask the foxes about the chickens, you get a very nice picture of what's going on. And I just by accident and some friends of mine asked the chickens. And I'm just, the fact is that one large 100-plus boat was asked in 2015 how they manage their gray water. And the captain said that they dump it over at night, the same as the other big boats. So then we looked into, we questioned 3 other random big boats in 2016 summer, and one was a captain and two were crew. They all said they pump their gray water routinely over at night. It's not pumped. I said, why? They said the boat basin doesn't have the personnel, doesn't have the facilities to take care of the gray water. That's why I came here. You have to look into it. But this is the tip of the iceberg, actually, the boat basin. I brought these so that, I mean, you guys have probably all read them, and ladies. This is the Volume 1, February 2016, the Nantucket Wastewater Management Plan Update, Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan Update Complete. And you read this, and it's lovely. It says, where's the pollution from? The pollution is from the storm drains, the pollution is from these septic systems, and the pollution is from the fertilizer, the agricultural products. There's no mention whatsoever about the boats, and that's why I call this the tip of the iceberg. There's many hundreds of boats out there, and I just want to, I probably said this before, I want to reiterate. In 1999, I talked at length to Mr. John Farrington at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. He was the dean of the biology school, and he did his most of his research in oil pollution. He said very simply, he said, Mr. Bender, you cannot have a healthy shellfish harbor and an uncontrolled recreational vessel harbor. And he went into the various reasons. And what I'm saying is that we essentially have an uncontrolled harbor for recreation vessels, whereby possibly just in the boat basin, 800 to 1,000 people are living there as though it were a hotel. And from what I can glean from them, the boat basin has been saying they're pumping everything for years. Total nonsense. That they have been pumping that gray water right there. And okay, certain boats have holding tanks, and those are the boats that I talk to, the big boats. But many of the boats in there, 40, 50, and 60 footers, not the great big ones, they have facilities, and this is true for the boats in the mooring field and boats in the anchorage, which now makes up many hundreds of boats that do not have any holding tanks, but do have washing machines, dishwashers, sinks, showers, etc., and that is inadvertently dumped into the water. So I'm saying that the Conservation Commission, the town, the government has to get on this, because it is a major source of pollution in Nantucket Harbor, and it is unaddressed. And I really, I can, it's marvelous that you guys went to the boat basin and, in fact, had the Winthrop conform with their 2006 Chapter 91 amnesty to clean up the. Those are the first two moves ever, and I've been on this. You can tell before '99. The reason I called up Woods Hole to get some information is that I was reading the Clean Water Act, and the Clean Water Act had a sentence in it that I didn't understand. It said the minimum fine for an oil spill, and an oil spill is defined as that amount of oil which produces a sheen, characteristic sheen, a rainbow type of colors, and that could be as little as a drop. That's considered an oil spill. The minimum fine is $5,000. And the next sentence it says, the minimum fine for putting detergent or surfactant on the oil spill is $10,000. And I didn't understand that, so that's why I called. Ken Kelly was the town biologist at that time, and he said, call Woods Hole, and I did. And he said, look, it's very simple. The putting a detergent on the oil spill is 2 orders of culpability higher than spilling the oil. Number one, you're trying to hide the evidence, so it's a higher crime. Number two, you're exacerbating the effect of the oil. So by putting it into the water column because it's normally very light and very volatile, and it eventually evaporates and does not come in contact with the shellfish, with the fish, or their larvae. Well, he said, that's why you can't have an unregulated recreational vessel, because you have all these detergents going in. And then at the same time, you have all these engines going, producing all this incomplete combustion products, so forth and so on, which in general are very light and very volatile and go away. But the minute the detergents go in the water, they go into the water column.
Steve,
So I agree that you certainly have to do sewering. You have to be very careful and control the agricultural products that are being used, and you have to control the vessels. And I intend this summer to, although I was, the police gave me a citation for trespassing, but I've read it into the Chapter 91 carefully, and it was invalid legally. I was in a public place, and I can talk to a captain of a boat. There's nothing illegal about that. I intend to continue with other friends of mine get information from these boats, because the chickens don't say what the fox says. The fox says, "Oh, everything's fine. We're doing all this. We're doing all this." That's nonsense. They're lying through their teeth, and they have been for over 30 years.
well, Steve, I'm going to have to interrupt
Yes.
you, because we've got a lot to get done
Yes, I
tonight.
understand. But I would like to introduce one person who really knows this, is Jim Gross. He worked down at the boat basin for 20 or 30 years fixing engines. Jim, do you want to say anything to them? Or?
Well, what do you have to say?
Well, I think, we're going to have to probably think about what our role is and what we can do about this, and that may be something Jeff will have to think about, too, of what this commission can do, unless, we can...
You guys are the
I mean-
boss. That's what the state
I gotta
says.
tell you, I think the boat basin's in compliance. That place is saturated with hookups. And I look at it as like an RV. These boat owners have the responsibility to take care of their sewage. They have all the hookups, they should have all the connectors. It's like an RV park. When you drive in, you have to get rid of your sewage. They have the connectors there for you, but you have to make the effort to do it.
It has nothing to do with the boats. It's not the boat's responsibility. If you read the Chapter 91 amnesty license carefully, and it's many pages long, it says very carefully that the operation of this facility must comply with all federal, state, and local regulations and bylaws.
So, Steve, what are you suggesting?
And so what I'm saying is the boat basin is under the aegis of the Chapter 91 amnesty license, which is written by the DEP of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. What I'm saying is that you guys have to assay the situation, and all boats that come into Nantucket Harbor, wherever they go, have to be vetted as to what their facilities are, and you have to make sure that they're not dumping, because as far as I can tell, this is one of the major sources of pollution. Nantucket Harbor is dead. It's a mess. It's nothing.
Well, Jeff, is
I
this
wanna go
something we
into
should deal
what it
with the
was in
health
the 70s.
department on?
It's certainly something that would fall kind of in joint jurisdictions between two. I mean, discharges are generally regulated through the Board of Health.
Yeah.
It is in a resource area, so discharging to a resource area is jurisdictional to some degree for us. I mean, I think it's something that if we're going to be reviewing, it can be something that we review with mooring handlers too, to see how they vet boats that they come onto their moorings. And it could be something that over time, that maybe something with the Conservation Commission and Board of Health, we create some sort of, I'm not sure if regulation is the best word to use for it, because I don't know how that works with both boards, but some sort of set procedure for vetting these boats when they get in, or information that they're required to provide, or a process in which someone that's tying up in the harbor has to follow to ensure that there's no discharges, I think is kind of where we're at. And I think some of it for the field visit was to get some information on what's happening at that specific facility. And I can speak to the town pier where they run by pump out roads and pump out stations, it's a little bit different than what the boat basin has. But I think the point that is being made is we need to get a better handle and understanding on what we should be doing to get that discharge away and not even have the discussion about if there is or if there isn't. The discussion is whether it's none and how do we ensure that that's the case.
It sounds like more policing almost. I mean, it sounds like a harbor master issue.
Right.
It sounds like a state police issue. It's not all the other personnel
It
out there on
does.
the water.
I think from our end, our point would be that as we have jurisdiction within the waterway itself, fostering that process along and making sure that that's taking place.
Right.
Not saying that we have to do it, but it's something that would be of interest to the Board of Health too.
Right.
So if that's something you guys would be interested in speaking with them about to set, of course, that path of action, we could certainly set that up. But I think that that would be an appropriate next step to say, hey, we looked this off, and Roberto Santamaria was with us. He was part of that trip to say, you know, what's the next step for us? Let's put together what needs to go on. Let's speak to the mooring handlers and move that process forward to ensure that we're not having discharges into the harbor. And that's something that certainly
Right. I mean, unless we hear it direct from the, I mean, we're kind of at a disadvantage, and we're not. I mean, you're hearing that they seem to be readily willing to tell you that they're pumping gray water.
They've been
into the
telling us
harbor.
that for over 30 years.
Oh, of course, I'm just saying. It's like it'd be interesting to know, to hear from them what the problem was so difficult for them. I mean, from what we saw, it looks extremely accessible.
Having sewer connections there in no way implies that they're being used.
Understandable.
But
I know what you're saying.
it seems kind of,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
well,
They have two little pumps. I mean, it's a joke. Anyway, I don't want to bother you. I will be back and back and back. I want to leave
We
these
don't have
copies
a
of this for you guys.
Okay, but Jim Gross had a comment too, so you may want to listen to
And
Jim.
if you read it carefully, you'll see that the selectmen are actually paying lip service to cleaning up the harbor. They're not going at it full tilt.
Okay.
So years ago, Nantucket was made a federal no discharge zone harbor, and it's never really been enforced. We talked about back then of putting, whenever a boat comes into the harbor, they come around Brant Point, that they're met by the harbor master or the enforcement agency, and putting dye tablets in their holding tanks and sealing the through hole. This is before we had holding tanks.
Yeah.
So that if there was a discharge, you would see the plume and the color of the water would change.
Mhm.
And nowadays, with they can tell whose bilge has been pumped into the harbor with DNA and all that stuff. But the problem is, nowadays there are holding tanks for black water, for sewage, but there are no holding tanks for gray water with all the dispersants in it that takes the soap, takes the dirt out of your clothes and all that. That's what's going in the harbor. And that is what we should be looking at. That plus, the town has the pump out boat that goes out there, but it only goes out to the boats that are called it to come out. And not all those boats take the time to do that, and they turn the valve the other way and they pump directly into the harbor. And the state of the water in the harbor nowadays, and the state of the shelf, I mean, look at the scallop harvest we just had. We had nothing. In fact, when I came here a long time ago, there was 450 scallop boats out there. It was great. And it was, but now it's like, so the pump out facilities in the boat basin and in the harbor, there's lots of boats out there. And there's lots of stuff going in the water
Right.
that shouldn't be. I mean, none of it ought to be going. It ought to be going in the old tanks and in the sewer.
Right. I mean, Winthrop obviously doesn't have control over the whole
No, but in the boat
anchorage.
basin they do.
Exactly. At the basin they do, but like you're saying, there's a lot of boats out there beyond the basin. So
Yeah. I mean, that's where
that's where.
we were talking about years ago, sealing through all. Put a tag on them, drop a dye tablet in there. So if they opened it, you could tell. Which, I mean, in a federal no discharge zone, you would think that the town would be held liable to the feds.
Yeah, but if you're saying the gray water doesn't have its own holding tank, where would you put the tablet in?
Well, that's what we have to do.
Well, that's what I mean. There wouldn't be a place to.
Well, there are two holes that go.
Well, you put the tablet in the through fitting, yeah. Well, I thought most modern boats all have holding tanks, like you say,
Well,
it's fit for
black water.
Right.
They have it, the big boats have holding tanks of gray water.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you get
The
big
big
ones.
ones.
But,
Yeah.
but from 30 to 50 feet, they only have black water tanks.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think what we're hearing is that we started kind of the discussion on this, and I think for next step, maybe we try to engage us together with the Board of Health and make some headway for. We'll try to get a joint meeting set up to just discuss this specific issue with it. Next, 2 to 4 weeks, we'll try to set that up, and get a time together to discuss the issue further.
I'd be curious from the harbor master as well.
Well,
I mean,
certainly
what
any
they
discussion-
run into and what they.
Yeah. Any discussion about the harbor would be different, but sure.
Yeah.
I talked to Dr. McNabb, and he would be thrilled to cooperate with you guys.
Oh, good.
He is very upset with this whole situation. I talked to Roberto himself, and I said, so if the enforcement agencies begin to get together and talk, I expect things to happen.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Steve. Okay. Any further comments on this issue? Okay. So, let's go into the public hearing. Notice of intent. We have a few continuances here. Nantucket Island Land Bank, 17 Commercial Wharf, and unnumbered lots, New Whale Street, is continued till May 10th. And Van Denborn, 135 Walnut Road, is continued till May 26th. Little Point Acquisitions, LLC, and 1113 Hollowell Lane is continued till May 26th. And then,
April.
pardon?
April 26th.
April. Oh, April. I've been saying May. Sorry. Okay.
And we have one more, Mr. Chairman. Community Sailing has requested a continuance until
Oh. Okay. And then certificates of compliance, Thompson, 14 Fargo Way, is continued till May 10th. That one is May. Sorry about that.
The first one was May.
Okay. Oh, that's what I. Okay. What's going on with my brain? Okay, so let's we'll start with Edwin Snyder, RT, 2 Brox Court.
The applicant just wanted to provide more of an update today than get into the substance of this. For the Commission's reminder, there were previously 2 applications, and one of them has been withdrawn and one of them is pending. And what happened here is the prior owner moved the house away from the wetland, but without a permit to do so from the Conservation Commission. The building permit was issued and the work was done, and then when they went to get the certificate of compliance, my clients bought the property after the work had been done, but before the certificate of occupancy had been issued. And when they went to get the CO, it was realized, wait, there was a step missed, and go back and fix it. So that is one issue, is that this work was done without a permit and or without a order of conditions, and that needs to be remedied, and whatever adjustments need to be made to make that whole need to happen. I think the Commission was relatively satisfied that there were either no changes or sort of minimal changes or non-objectionable changes, I guess I would say, to make that happen. But then there was also an issue of other work that my client wanted to do to develop the property, and when that was applied for in a separate NOI, the neighbors objected to the work, and there was a large amount of controversy about where the wetland delineations were, and of course that delineation from the second application was applicable to the first, or the delineation on the first would be applicable to the second, however however, whatever way it happened. So they sort of were running in tandem. Because of the length of time that has passed, we withdrew the NOI for the first one, and I think we're going to make enough significant changes to it that we need a new one anyway. The other one probably will just let sit with what's already filed. Jeff, can you remind me, is there an enforcement action, or are we just in on the NOI?
There was an enforcement action that was issued on the chicken coop structure.
Right.
That was installed, that's since been
Move.
placed onto the deck.
Right.
The patio. And since then, and the one that just came in, was the trench that was installed off of the building.
Right.
In the last week.
Right.
Without any permits.
I'll get into that in a second. So the one of the issues that came up through the second NOI was the discovery of not only was there the wetland that everyone recognizes, but there is on Ms. Fader's property a 100-year-old man-made pond that has now been naturalized enough to qualify not under state law but under the local regs as a wetland, and that created a new wetland boundary that we had to deal with, and there was some question as to where those boundaries would settle. So we have been working with the abutters. We took a little time off to catch our breath. My clients actually winter in Florida, and there was a bit of difficulty in both scheduling and negotiating to try and figure out what would be acceptable. And there is a very narrow band that we think is not terribly objectionable. I don't know if anybody really likes it. To both sides, and that we think that the commission might also accept. And of course, it's up to you to do that when we present it more formally. Then, of course, in the large rainstorm that we had, as we were sort of getting everything all settled, about 10 days ago, we had that huge rainstorm, and my client's basement flooded, and their response was to call their landscaper and tell them to deal with that and put in some drainage, which, of course, you and I all know needs an order of conditions, but apparently that was lost on them I don't know if you saw the pictures, but it was relatively significant undertaking, and definitely needs an order of conditions. So that work has been stopped, and I think what we'd like to do is try to work that into the overall NOI that will be filed, because I think we need to deal with both the water on my client's property and also water on other properties. So it's an opportunity to have a mutually beneficial drainage fix, to the extent I think you could ever fix the drainage there. I don't know that you really can, but you could make it 10% better. I think would be a big help. But to suggest anybody could fix it, I think that's a bit much. But so I think that we have added that to the mix, and we're going to bring in an engineer, or there's already an engineer involved who will work on that. So the really short version here is that they're not going to complete the the drainage project that was just started. And we are going to come in after we have a resolution of the drainage issue with an NOI for the new work, and at the same time that would involve trying to close out the permit for the old work that was done, or get and then close out the permit for the old work that was done. So even though it seems to you like nothing's happened for 8 months, and for some 3 or 4 months that was true, nothing was happening, we have sort of diligently been working behind the scenes, both trying to come up with a resolution and to some extent making it worse. But we are now trying to resolve all the issues globally. So that's where we are. Due to the complexity of the issues and scheduling and school vacations and whatever, my guess is we need more than a month to both design and agree. So sometime I would assume in May or June we would see an NOI that would deal with this. And if the commission wanted to seek any immediate action, of course it's your prerogative, and we would cooperate with that.
I mean, there was definitely some concern about, I think we all agree that the wetland delineation needed to be relooked at.
Yeah.
So we're definitely waiting. And that really, I think, no one wants to sign off in the House until we have a agreed upon wetland delineation.
That was the issue we basically came up with is,
right, I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I'm also just slightly confused. If the homeowner called the landscaper the homeowner is well aware that their landscaper shouldn't do work without a permit at this point, because the homeowner's been in here at least once.
The homeowner's been in here for 50 years, so,
Right, but present at
Right,
one of
but-
our meetings
Yeah,
about
no,
this particular property.
I had a long conversation with that mostly involved, what do you mean I can't pump up my basement? They're going to force me to leave it flooded. No, that's not what I'm saying. It was, I think that they get that they now get that you can't build a structure, but this idea that the drainage was included in that was, not within their understanding, and now it is. And unfortunately, it was quite a large amount of digging that was done that shouldn't have been, and I apologize that that was not addressed better. Obviously, it wasn't. If they had asked me, I would have told them, no, you can't, but they didn't.
So what shall we do and they do in the interim while their basement is flooding? And I don't know how we're going to leave this. Do they have a big hole in their yard now? Kind of waiting to
So, yeah, there's a trench. It's essentially a big French
Well,
drain.
the trench
Filled in.
has been filled in,
Okay.
so there's nothing that's open on the surface of the ground at this point.
So there's no structure, there's no dry well in the ground, they can,
By appearances, I'll be honest and say I didn't see it open the trench for what was there, but it seems like it just stops. There's no, the trench runs about 10 feet off of the end of the patio that exists, and it's by disturbance about 18 inches wide, and then it terminates to nothing. There's no puddle that's there. There's no clear discharge that's there. It looks like they started and just stopped.
Yeah.
is there a street drain, is there something out of our jurisdiction that they could pump their basement on? I mean, obviously it's going to flood again, right? If we have another big rain, it's going to flood again.
Also, I feel like, and I just can't remember back when this was actually being discussed, but there was questions about the original house that was moved back and unpermitted and how much basement space the original had versus the new one, and I'm wondering what portion of the house had basement flooding and where is the basement? Is it the whole thing? Because I feel like we were told they didn't have a full basement
It was
over
a
there.
crawl space.
Yeah.
It's a crawl space.
For the original.
When I looked at it the other day, it was.
Or even the-
Yeah, so for the original, right. So that's a
Original
good
was a
one.
full basement, and this is a crawl space.
Okay.
So,
That's what they said.
Under the new house.
right, so the unpermitted work was, a basement would not have been permitted there probably.
Right. And
So it was a crawl space that was flooding.
Right, so a basement will probably flood from here to
Well,
there.
the original structure prior to move was on a full basement.
Yes.
Okay.
This one is been moved is on a crawl space.
Okay.
Whatever they did with any flooding in the basement before, I'm not sure we know the answer to what that was. My guess, based upon a lot of other residents in the neighborhood and what went on in that area for years, it probably was just pumped over veins to wherever it flowed.
I'm sure that was the case.
I mean, that's not an uncommon practice in the downtown vicinity.
Did it flood, or did the water level rise around that area during the heavy rainstorm? Because it's all gravel under there, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I guess I should have been more clear that it's actually a crawl space and not a basement. But I don't know if it was just a rise in groundwater or if it was, flooding from stormwater. I think that's something we need to have addressed sort of either way.
I guess I'm a bit confused. What exactly is a crawl space? Is it like concrete blocked and deep?
Crawl space.
So it's basically a shallow basement,
Right.
effectively. It's not just your house is up high enough you can crawl underneath
Right,
it
it's
with
like
the
4 feet
spiders and stuff.
Deep enough to get
Frost
frost.
wall fund.
Okay.
Just deep enough for someone to get down there and be uncomfortable.
But in this area, what they do is they go down to the water level and stop. And basically go down another 12 inches, fill the fabric, gravel, and then put the foundation on top of it. So you don't really have to go down 4 feet in this area because of the water levels.
It's too high, yeah.
So
I would say, to answer the question, one remedy for a flooded basement is any citizen of Nantucket can apply for a temporary discharge to the storm drains. There's a procedure that requires sign-offs from a couple different town offices. to do it, we're going to identify an available catch basin and the methodology that you're going to get it there. And it's certainly an opportunity that they could try to use if their crawl space were to flood again and was causing problems to the structure. That's certainly a remedy that's available outside of just pumping it out to wherever it's going.
There's a storm drain across the street because somebody was pumping into it the other day when I was going home from the site visits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was up the hill.
So I appreciate that, Jeff. I'll recommend that they try to get advance permission for something like that. And we'll try to work a more long-term solution into the refiled NOI that will come in. So I guess the really short version here is that I expect to see a comprehensive solution that deals with the development, the wetland boundaries, the prior move, the violations, everything, probably in the May-June timeframe at the soonest, and that if the commission had concerns about what had happened and wanted, based on staff recommendation or your own observations, to have any immediate action taken, that we would certainly do that, although we didn't have any proposal for it.
Certainly more water would infiltrate if the patio was gone. But.
Yeah, I suspect that the notice of intent or in the order of conditions for the house move will involve removing the existing patio and lowering that grade. I think it's about a foot or 18 inches would be naturalized. And then we had talked about it 9 months ago that actually what might make sense there is to replace that patio with a deck because it would be off the ground and it would give you the opportunity to use the space under that for drainage purposes. But doing that couldn't be approved through the cleaning up the old move. That's new work. So how that ends up happening, I mean, lowering it and removing it can be but installing a new deck would be a new permit. So, the logistics of it are a little tricky, but I think that's the plan, and the client's comfortable if that ends up being the solution of removing the patio, adjusting the grade, and then dealing with it in the phase 2. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. If there's any comments,
Okay.
taking testimony on it.
Good point. Okay. Comments from the public?
Thank you, members of the commission. My name is Paul Feldman. I'm an attorney, and I represent several of the immediate adjacent abutters. I've been before you once before, many months ago, when I think the issue of the delineation became front and center. So let me just start with that. The bottom line is I think the delineation issue is going to have to get resolved by you. The question is, and what I've been working on with Steve, is whether or not there could at least be a meeting of the minds between the abutters expert and the applicant's expert so that you're not confronted with dueling experts, which is where you find yourself right now. And the way we see it is if we can end up with a comprehensive solution to everything that's going on this property, our surmise is that we're going to be able to at least eliminate the dueling experts so that may make it easier for you guys to figure out the delineation issue. So to respond to the specific question, I think that's at the heart of this. What's the delineation? We're trying to see that can get accomplished in a reasonable way. If we can't get to the comprehensive solution, well, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks. You're gonna have to figure out the dueling experts and make your delineation, and we'll go from there. But let me I just got to say a couple of things about the other slices of the onion. Let's talk about the basement issue. I don't know if you remember, but your enforcement action a year ago, or whatever it was, 9 months ago, was not just about the chicken coop and keeping the chicken coop structure off of that lawn to the south of the moved house. There was a drainage system, an underground drainage system, put into that back lawn. And the enforcement action was to be removed. Now, the abutters have no idea if in fact it was removed, or it was partially removed, or entirely removed. We don't know. What we're concerned about is what happened last week, which if by happenstance one of the abutters just happened to be here and saw what was going on, was enabled to, and then therefore it's right next to their property, you can take pictures. We may not have known this work ever got done, but with the pictures that I saw, and I think that Jeff has saw, appeared to me, is first of all, there's a sump pump system that is put in that is automated now that will pump out this basement area. The trenching and ties into a piping, which, as I understand, has been backfilled with perhaps nothing there, although we don't know because none of us have gone underground. The concern that we have is that the piping that was put in the ground last year that was supposed to be removed, well, maybe wasn't entirely removed, and what was being attempted. I don't know this. I'm just saying it needs a little bit of investigation. What was being attempted last week was to just get back to the point where they took some stuff out of the ground, but maybe not everything, so that it wasn't just going nowhere, as it appears. We just think, well, this doesn't make any sense. Where are they putting the water? It seems to be going nowhere. Well, maybe it's not. No, look, that's all surmise on my part. I don't know. And I'm not suggesting that we spend a ton of energy on that issue now, because I think in our efforts to have a comprehensive solution, we will address that. I mean, we're not going to ignore it. We're going to come to the bottom of it with Steve. So I'm not suggesting. I just, for the record, though, wanted to put a placeholder that there may be some connection between the enforcement action from last year and this latest work. And if we get to a comprehensive solution, who cares? But if we don't, I just wanted the record to be correct on that point. The only other thing I would say, because I agree with mostly everything Steve just said, for the record, was that I think some of the activities that the current owner is trying to legalize through the issuance of an order of conditions in connection with the relocation of the house was improvements made by this applicant, not just the prior applicants. There's a deck area that's next to the patio, which, as I remember the facts, and I may be wrong, was actually done by the current owner, not the prior owner. And, you know, I to the extent that the current owner wants to say, you know, don't blame us for not getting the order of conditions that the people we bought the house from should have gotten before they moved it. Well, okay, but we will blame you for the structures that you put in jurisdictional area that you know, going after an order of conditions about. So I just wanted to make that distinction. That I think there's some direct culpability. Again, placeholder for the record. Nothing more than that today. So what I think Steve and I have been able to accomplish is that there appears to be, and maybe we're both sets of clients are either getting tired or kicking and screaming, getting to a place where we can get to a solution. We seem to have some meetings on the minds about, you know, what is a comprehensive solution for the entire property, which we think is going to involve the Conservation Commission's ultimate input and ultimate decisions for the conditions. And our expectation is that we will also work on some property covenants so that there's an independent basis for the abutters to enforce the outcome through property laws, so that we don't have to come back to the Conservation Commission each time. And that's what we'll all put on the table, and we've talked about that. There seems to be a willingness to go in that direction, and that's why I have confidence that we will get there. And if I didn't, then I would say that. But I think we will get there, and I think Steve's right. I think it's more in the nature of the June meeting, partly because I know I have a trial for 2 weeks in May, so it's going to take up my time. But from an expectations point of view, from timing, I think we'll talk about June. I know your clients don't want to hear that, but that's where we find ourselves. That's it. That's all.
Thank you. And
No, I think we're on the same page.
okay, great. Any other comments? Okay, well, we will continue. And
We need to continue to it.
do we have a set date? You want to? Yeah.
We just can't continue to May. Actual option, the way forward.
2000.
I know, I feel like we continued to like October, date certain, and then that,
This won't
So
forget that.
the first meeting of June that we have is June the 7th.
That's right.
Yeah, probably, can we continue to the last meeting, the second meeting in May, with the idea that if it doesn't work out, we'll push it.
That's fine too. I'll give it a shot.
Okay, so we will continue till May 24th.
Great, thank you.
Excited.
The clock is ticking.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so, okay, can you say anything when you said let's continue to? Yes. Okay, great. Bellevue Nominee Trust, 119 R Eel Point Road.
So just while I'm getting the plans up, just for the record, we also conducted a field viewing here. This one here.
Thank you. On behalf of the applicant, Mr. Bellevue, Paul Santos of Nantucket Surveyors. Representing Mr. Bellevue is Arthur Reed, and also Linda Bellevue is in the back over there, who is Richard Bellevue's daughter. This was an application that came before you a few weeks ago for the installation of a set of seasonal beach stairs within a 5-foot wide easement that Mr. Bellevue holds over 119R Eel Point Road. The Bellevue property is located on the southerly side of Eel Point Road, and Mr. Bellevue has access via this easement, access and the right to construct beach stairs on the subject property. So the plan that you see before you was somewhat developed off of comments at the last meeting, and then also based on the site visit on Monday that I know a bunch of the commissioners made. So the plan that you see before you essentially depicts two sets of beach stairs. An upper section, which is these are all aluminum beach stairs manufactured by Aluminadoc. So the upper section is a 20-foot section of stairs, which weighs approximately 212 pounds. It would be set at the top of the slope and run down the bank with two sets of braces, in which were depicted on the plan. Those are posts set into the bank with a cross member that would have a sloped piece of wood that the stairs could then slide in and out on. The lower section would be, and this is a change from what we had submitted originally, would also be a set of aluminum beach stairs. Again, Aluminadoc beach stairs, model AS8, which is approximately 85 pounds. It's essentially an 8-foot section, which would also be anchored via the similar format, which is the two posts with a cross member at an angle of the stairs, so the stairs could be slid in and out. We've defined on the plan an installation date and a removal date. So the installation date we're proposing would be April 1st of each year, with a removal date of November 1st. The stairs would be stored at the property of Mr. Bellevue, which is 118 Eel Point Road. They would be stored outside of the jurisdiction of the commission. And then we've made note of the wooden support details, and we've added those particular area to the plan. We've also defined essentially a walking path between the two sets of stairs. So we would be access off at the top of the easement to the lower plateau, across the plateau, and then down to that lower set of beach stairs. We have had some follow-up with Kevin Dale, who was the attorney for Mr. Snowden, and Arthur may want to just speak. I think we're good with both Mr. Snowden and Mr. Dale with regard to this current proposal.
I think we're fine. Kevin came to the meeting earlier and indicated that he, didn't have a problem and wasn't going to stick around.
We do have a DEP file number. It does not require review by NHESP under the Mass Endangered Species Act, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, a comment more, Steve. I generally support the use of stairs on banks, et cetera, because it does limit erosion. But the place I have a problem is that gap between the two sets of stairs. It's effectively walking through dunes, and I think it would, and there is some vegetation throughout that kind of, and I think it'd be better off if you put some kind of a elevated walkway in there just to protect the dune, so you won't be digging it. You're going to be digging a trench in there if it's heavily used, because people are always just going to beeline right across there and stuff. And
You'll be pushing that sand all down on the second set of stairs.
I would rather see just something like a nice fiberglass walkway in there or something.
Does that fall
Does
into
it fall under
structure?
structures?
I suspicion this is going to come up. So one of the ideas that we bandied around for a little while in my previous life as youth manager is it may be an opportunity. I don't want to obligate them to anything, but if it's a concern and the structure is a concern, there are the ability to install another temporary kind of a gangway between the two that you could go on that could also get seasonally removed. Because I think we're in a unique situation here where you're not compliant with zoning if you install a fiberglass walkway that's fixed, because that's a big structure within, as weird as it is to say, the side yard setback of the 5 feet. So off of the property line, that if there's something that could be temporary in between the two and removed, that certainly could be an option.
So I can like slowly, but still, you know, they can get there. Not often that someone tells you have to put a walkway in the village.
Yeah, I think we can look at something.
Maybe you could do a set of, it would almost look like, not like a pallet or something that you could, step down each, so 1, 2, 3, 4, that they could be easily picked up and moved on a
You know, those ground mats, we use them on construction sites all the
Yeah.
time to protect lawns and so forth, and they come in all different shapes, sizes, and material. But that's something maybe you can look at. I'm sure that you probably use them.
Yeah.
Hurt the vegetation.
What's that, 30 feet or something?
Yeah, probably, I think we just look about 25 feet,
Yeah.
25 feet or so.
Far.
Yeah.
I had a question. How did you get the 10-foot deep hole for the 6x6? What were we going to use for that?
Well, they could be pneumatically driven with a handheld pneumatic hammer. That's what we've done on some of the other ones. So it was like a 2-person handheld. And they just yeah, and they just kind of drive stuff right down.
Put in a hole.
It's a jackhammer mount.
Yeah.
I kind of like that gangplank idea. If your client would be interested in that, or if you can find one, that is pretty long.
Oh, they do have those, the ones that roll, like,
Yeah.
they're flexible and they connect and they just roll right out and you can just connect, but I don't know how
The
much.
beach version of the red carpet.
Yes, yes,
We have a few of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So some type of protection between the two stairway.
Yeah, I know. Do you have any plans, because I was concerned, and maybe the matting will remove my concern, but about erosion happening at the second set of stairs at the back side?
Well, that we're going to be constantly subject to what happens each year. We do have the sand drift fencing on the neighboring lot.
Just
but-
because the traffic, I was afraid, was going to start collapsing this from behind almost, so not.
Yeah. Well, that one may have to be adjusted on a yearly basis only because of how the erosion is going to affect in the winter. I think in season it's going to be fine. It's going to be the time between November to April that those posts are either going to have to be adjusted, and that's about a 5-foot drop in a small amount. And it's basically where the dune has been cut by the erosion. So I think the lower set of stairs will have to, maybe get a few years and maybe have to adjust. Maybe get a few years and have to adjust. Yeah.
Other questions?
I would say, just to kind of continue to put it on the record, if there's something that you would like to go in between those, and you feel like that's something you would be required, you can simply require that the applicant have some sort of protection for that area in the order of conditions, and then it's their obligation to do and have something that they provide. What that is, I think it may be something that going forward, that if they're having to relocate that lower section of stairs within the life of the permit, that they would also be having to report that we're resetting those posts and doing that. So I think you have a mechanism to kind of monitor what was going on. So
Right, and we can certainly, provide that, as soon as we design exactly what we're going to put by way of connecting protection, that we'll, provide the information on it to Jeff, and obviously if there's any concern, you can
That would
raise it.
certainly be something that you could include as a condition of the
Yeah.
order.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
You don't have to, but
I think simpler would be better, something too elaborate.
Yeah, what is that?
Permanent.
What's that material that they use at Jetty's Beach? It's like a.
it's a movie match.
What's that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the pathway going down the beach,
Yeah.
yeah, they just roll it, it rolls out.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like that. Would that work? Or is that?
I think so. I mean, it would provide, you wouldn't be losing the sand to move it.
Right.
It would be stable. And obviously, whatever vegetation is gone would be gone.
Right. I mean, I don't think we can't require an elevated walkway through here because then that sort of constitutes a structure, correct?
Yeah.
So it has to be some sort of soft feature.
And it might be nice to get some clarification in the zoning bylaws someday as to things like this, because I don't think that, when setbacks as to structures were contemplated, that this situation was being thought about. But there's no question under the present rules, any fixed assemblage of materials would constitute a structure, and therefore would need to maintain one in this district as a 15-foot setback because we have a 5-foot easement.
Yes,
I wonder if something could be designed that would sit on the bottom step of the top
We'll get with either.
Right.
stairs and then sit on the top step of the bottom stairs.
Yeah,
Or something
I'm
like that.
thinking about something that'll at least bridge that area in between. So.
Yeah.
Just like another set of stairs, only with the stairs all flat, they just walk across,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, lighter the better.
I would say instead of trying to engineer it, it's simply require it.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Their problem to solve.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we get the big bucks for.
Yeah, that's why you guys are on that side of the table, we're on this side of the table.
Unfortunately, we get in trouble.
Okay, so, no questions. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Okay. Nothing else? So, we have everything we need?
Yes.
Are we ready to close?
Yes, please.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nantucket Island, 16 East Beach Road. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel Freeman, representing the Nantucket Islands Land Bank. And I have a couple of plans for you guys. Pictures of the site at 16 East Creek Road. It's a little over a quarter acre. And it's a small site that borders on the creek's wetland system and eventually goes out to Nantucket Harbor. The land bank has been evaluating other properties for handicapped accessibility, and this is one of the ones that came out as a pretty easy property to promote access to for somebody who was in a wheelchair or had challenges walking. And so we have proposed to put in a brick walkway and a patio with a bench. There's already a handicap parking space on the site, and it's all outside of the 50, actually, but we decided to come in for an NOI because if there's any changes in the future, it seems like it's a simpler way to do it at Jeff's recommendation. So, it's Salt Marsh, then BVW, followed by Upland, and there's a coastal bank on the neighboring property.
I don't know if you just for the record, the property is so fast, land so close to Stone Village,
Right.
but it's way into itself.
Yes. And it is not in National Heritage jurisdiction.
And it's like 8 feet by 9.5 feet? No.
16
Oh,
by
16
9
by
feet, 9
yep.
inches.
What's the material, Rachel, that's going down?
It's actually going to be brick.
Oh, so you're going to lay it brick.
Yes. As proposed.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
I'll just say for the record, using the sheet on it up, I usually try to steer people's work notices because it gives you guys a lot more ability to condition things if you find it necessary. You can also do that because flexibility when something changes and all of a sudden they realize they want to add to be 16 foot by 12 foot or 8 foot by 7 foot, they can amend it and have to reapply what they do for request for determination. That's stuff. Or if they decide they need to do extra vegetation work or something that's there, they can come back and amend as opposed to file new.
Is there going to be some kind of a hand railing or something along at least one edge, to aid people that have difficulty walking?
There was no intention to do so, but we could include that.
Well, as somebody who, not too long ago went through a period of that, it might, I know I can't judge a product, a project on that kind of thing, but a hand railing might be, helpful for certain,
We have been working with Brenda McDonough, the Commission on Disability, to try and get some ideas and have her come out to a bunch of different sites, and she's been providing suggestions. But sure, I think handrails are great. Usually we do them when things are elevated, but I could see it being useful.
Yeah, it seems like, the perfect place for something like this.
It provides a nice view of the creeks. It's a great place to sit.
No comments? Comments from the public? Okay. If there's nothing else, Jeff, do you have everything you need to close?
Fantastic.
Ready to close?
Ready to close.
The motion? Motion to close. Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, you got one.
Okay. Joan D. Patel, Nantucket Trust, 12 North Liberty.
Jeff Blackwell for the applicant.
I got myself.
This project is proposes to construct a dwelling more than 50 feet away from the wetland, and there's some associated landscaping within the buffer zone. There has been some cutting within the buffer zone, and in fact within partially within a 25-foot setback to the wetland, which was done to push back some invasive, quite a lot of Japanese knotweed that has established a community on the property over the years. And I think that there was simply a misunderstanding about the timing as to when the Japanese knotweed could be touched, or areas within the buffer zone, and the owner has been informed that we'll have to go through a process to obtain permits. Number one for the dwelling, but also to reestablish wetland boundary and a limit of work, and so that's kind of where we are with the overview of the project. This is a large property on North Liberty Street, the owners of which once owned a large tract of land which later became Woodbury Lane. I have some pictures here of the cutting of the Japanese knotweed, and also some highlighting of where a historic path had linked this meander through the property, well within the buffer zone, and in some locations the old path is within 25 feet of the wetland boundary. The owner of the properties would like to maintain the historic path that is visible on the photographs.
Is it there?
Yeah. It's also highlighted on the photograph. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Has the path always been mowed?
Pardon me?
Has the path always been mowed? Cleared?
It's been maintained, the Japanese knotweed, as you can see, is come right up and crowded in on a path. I believe it's always been maintained.
I thought that was like grass.
Yeah, it looks like moss.
Well, that's the highlighting. Any similarity to the Yellow Brick Road is coincidental.
Nice.
Yeah.
No scarecrows.
Yeah.
Photoshop.
No flying monkeys.
Thank God. Sure. You ready for questions?
Sure.
Well, my first question is, is there going to be any kind of basement or anything under this house?
No, it's going to be a crawl space, stem wall.
What does that mean?
The frost walls, it's not going to be a full basement. Okay, that's news to me. This is an area that's not conducive to full basements.
It'll be a swimming pool under the house is what it'll be.
Always wicked.
Well, we can talk about that. I wasn't informed of that.
Yeah, that came back when she was originally
Could you give us your name, please, for the record?
This is Deb Timmerman, who's also owner's representative.
She was originally going to put the house in this lot here because she does fully own that. This part has, do you get into that or do I? Do you get into that or do you?
Just explain to them what
Yeah.
about the basement.
So anyway, there's humongous elm trees, stand of elm trees, which are really beautiful. And so even though she could have built on this lot here, she is instead giving this property to the land council and instead putting a small cottage here because she grew up on this property and she can't, if you start cutting the tree roots, they're going to die. So she doesn't want that. So that's why we're back here. And so she thought, well, if I'm putting it here, there's no tree roots. So I could put a full basement. Now, if that's not possible, she'll have to accept that.
Well, what we would need to know is depth to groundwater and what kind of depth the basement would be.
We're going to have
going
that
and all of
tested.
that sort of
That's our next step.
information.
It's going to be wet.
Yeah, this is a notorious neighborhood.
Dale, the tree man, who takes care of all these trees, felt that it was good soil here, that it's red clay up in here, and that you get more flooding here.
I can see that, we're heading for a second hearing here. I think we need to talk and maybe gather some results of soil testing. I'd be surprised if the soil was there to support a full basement.
Okay.
But we can work that out and come back to you in 2 weeks
I think before we continue, why don't, if we go through some of the other aspects for the vegetation, so if there are any other questions before we continue, you'll have time to address or deal with those, so we're not having more hearings.
That's a good idea.
Right.
So, not that I would agree that it sounds like there's more information needed and some clarity from everybody. I think there's also the, how we're dealing with the cutting that was done within the buffer zone and what's going to happen in that area or what the applicant's proposing to do there. I think that'd be good to go through. And then I know you also provided kind of a rough landscaping plan of what's there. To kind of discuss that a bit. That way, if there's any revisions or tweaks that need to be made, you'll have an opportunity to do that. But that's something that we'll discuss.
I don't know. Did you get one of these? Okay. If you open that up, Jeff, you'll see I've highlighted in pink along the proposed silt fence line the area that is most in need of at least renaturalization, but I haven't had a chance to talk with the owner about exactly how aggressively they want to try to control the Japanese knotweed. If you talk to
Well, she hates it. I mean, it's rampant there, and I think that was why there was a miscommunication. She had talked about, it was invasive, and I think she might have misunderstood Cormac with that she couldn't actually go and just get more of it out. I mean, and that's all that was taken out. The Japanese knotweed. It had, nothing else could grow there. It was a
Is that in the, outside the 25 or inside the 25 or?
It looks like it's right into this.
Yeah, it looks like it.
So if this is the 25.
this is all part of that knotweed community.
All the inside
So where you
there.
say edge of brush towards the wetland is all knotweed, and then the other pockets of brush are native species?
Even upland of this brush line here is, if that's just left alone, it's gonna, that knotweed community is gonna come right back in.
Right, so this is knotweed, and then these edges of brush are native species,
Yeah,
or they're
it's
mixed?
just-
That's been maintained over the years, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it's not a French garden by any means. It's pretty, pretty wild and woolly in there. A lot of volunteer shrub species.
Well, we fairly routinely permit the control of invasives, and we have a set of protocols that, we can provide, usually we just recommend that or require that a licensed applicator do that and things like that, but it does require going through the process. And we would like to see it on the plan of where that's going to work would take place.
Yeah, like if you're going to start near the proposed structure, trying to restore to native plants, and if there's like a phasing.
There would be, going back. Yeah, I mean, actually, the Japanese knotweed kind of is in there, and then this is more wetland, so the Japanese knotweed is not there. There is also, and I don't know if it's been on this plan, there are two ancient willow trees that have been choked by, what is that vine?
Bittersweet?
I don't know.
Anyway, the trees are basically just about dead. And so she would like to have those trees removed and replaced with new ones, and of course, eliminate the choking. Unfortunately, she got this property from an elderly aunt and who didn't have the money to maintain all of this for so many years, and it just got out of control.
I don't know if we've ever permitted trees planting right in the, replanting trees in the wetland.
Amazingly enough, we actually have, but it's in circumstances where things were getting removed or replaced, but we
Right.
permitted in wetland areas red maple before.
Yeah, that red maple.
Right, true. Right.
But I think it's something that, if we're looking at that level of
It
kind
sounds-
of work
this
and
is-
restoration, I think
Whole plan.
Yeah.
there's some details of
Yeah.
what is going to go back into those areas or what the goal to get to would be. So if we're going to be setting up, whatever monitoring is required for maintenance, everyone, including the permit holder, kind of knows what's expected and what's involved.
Right.
I don't think we want to have anything that's vague and open to interpretation or.
I mean, she doesn't have to replace the trees, but they're going to fall
Right.
down.
I mean, it looks
Are
like
they
we need a
dead?
whole restoration plan. But, I mean, there's a lot of
They're
facets.
like,
So-
they're really, really tall, and there's no growth because of these vines that are gone.
So I think you could, sort of present it to your friend or client.
Client.
I mean, she has a real opportunity to do something nice here. We don't want to come off like this is an undue burden on somebody, but it just has to go through the proper channels.
Sure.
So I think she can really make a nice difference in here and take care of the invasives.
Well,
and
she
do-
loves the property.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and it's heartbreaking for her to have seen it kind of get all choked up. And, she was a little girl running around all this area and into Woodbury Lane, and, this is,
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if an arborist has, given the opinion that those trees are done for?
Dale Carey, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He said basically
Couldn't just
they maybe
clean
have
up.
2 breaths left in them,
Hmm.
and then they're going to keel over.
I just wondered if you cleaned out those vines, maybe they would survive. But
He
if
doesn't
it's
think, he
beyond
said
that-
they're too far gone to
Okay,
come
I
back.
just was curious if
Yeah.
that was the case.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's kind of nice to save those trees,
Mhm. Well, she's saving a lot of things. She doesn't want to take down anything that doesn't have to come down, and that was why she didn't want to build here, because she almost would have had to, but she said, I just can't damage those trees. They're so beautiful, and they're in very healthy because he's taking really good care of them.
Yeah. Definitely, I think someone who can do like restorative landscaping should look at this, because down here we have remove invasives and replace with Leland cypress, and that's not what we would want to be going in the buffer zone. So we get a more
That would ju-
holistic plan.
Okay, she just wants something along that line. That was just a suggestion.
We
Right,
can
right.
talk about the list of.
Yeah, right now,
approved
again, they're
plants.
invasive things that are there.
I mean, the willows are, if the plan involves for replanting, for instance, the trees that have been choked out by the vines, I guess I'm asking you, would you, willows, once again, are not on your list, and would you be looking for something more like, the red maple or something like that? To
Probably
replace those, you'd want something off your.
off the native plant list, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is that available on like the website or the?
chances are they're not the native.
Materials that go over
We have a black bill that's not, I don't think you can get that in there.
You have a nice handout.
Yeah.
But I think really at the end of the day, looking at the landscape plan, I'll try to summarize, is there are areas where you're proposing lawn and then restoration areas that I think if we could get some specifics on outside of, native grasses and shrubs, what native grasses and shrubs and what that may look like, and if you're going to be restoring other areas or attempting to manage a pretty significant stand of knotweed, is pretty substantial, how far that's going to go, and then what your steps are going to be to rehabilitate that area once you start to get control of the knotweed, and what the longer term plan is to bring that area back to what would be a more traditional native population that's there. And will that require the possibility of supplementing with some plantings here and there, what that's going to look like. But I think Ben put it very well, is anytime you're dealing with these big restoration style projects, it also provides a really awesome opportunity for someone to, work on their property to get something that can enhance, habitat for native wildlife.
And she's all into that, very
Those things, and I
definitely.
think it would be, in keeping with the management of that property.
Well,
Okay, I think we have plenty of feedback.
Okay.
We have some work to do. So,
okay, we'll put up the public, see if there's any comments from the public, question? Okay. So, can I continue for 2 weeks?
yes, please. Thank you.
2 weeks. Thank you very much. Amended orders of conditions. Nantucket 62 Walsh LLC, 62 Wall Street.
Thank you for the applicant, 62 Wall Street LLC, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors. If you bear with me, these next two applications are kind of tied together, but we'll start with 62 Wall Street. So this is an amended order. If you'll see, the plan that you have before you is actually two parcels, which are now held in common ownership. 62 Walsh is this existing structure. 64 Walsh is a parcel that is now vacant, that did have a dwelling on it at one time, and was a larger parcel, which was subdivided down the middle, and is now a vacant parcel. So the amendment of the order for 62 Wall Street is simply the fact that we'd be adding a portion of the addition to the existing structure. That being, for the purposes of this order, the drive has already been permitted, the shed has been permitted, and this covered porch in the back has been permitted under an existing order of conditions. So the amendment is simply the fact that we're expanding this existing structure by this small section here for the purposes of 62 Wall Street.
Can you point that out at one time?
So that's right in this area here. So 62 Walsh is where the hedge line is, to the right. So really, this amendment is just the fact that we're now constructing a small portion of structure on 62
That connects the two things.
to add on to what we're going to be doing at 64. Keeping in mind now that the property is now in common ownership. But I have two orders of conditions. I have an order of condition for 62, and I have an order for 64. So that's the limit of the work that we're asking to amend for 62, is this little addition on the property.
So, like that.
Correct. That's it. And that's all. All the rest of this, the parking, the shed, and the covered porch is already been permitted through the existing order of conditions.
Okay, now we move on to,
So that is 62. So at the risk of sounding very abrupt and quick here, that's really all I'm asking to do, amend the order for 62, is the fact that we're connecting the two buildings together. We're adding on to and making the building larger.
and the covered porch is already permitted?
That's already permitted.
Yeah.
Driveway's permitted, and the shed is permitted. So, yeah, it's this right here. That's it. And that is the extent of the amendment to 62 Wall Street. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Because 64 is obviously a little bit more detailed, and we'll talk about that next.
This is a flood zone.
I'm sorry. This is down in the Halbert Avenue area on Wall Street. It's strictly land within subject to coastal storm flowage. Yep.
No.
And this structure has been constructed. The existing structure on 62 was constructed under the new flood zone regulations. And this would be not an infill foundation. This would be elevated with appropriate floodgates.
So what's on this lot? Just out of curiosity, I'm just curious.
That's actually being developed right now. That's an existing.
Yeah.
I actually have the plan for that. That is what's being built out there right now is an existing dwelling, pool, and a secondary dwelling on that particular parcel there. And then the lot that is now vacant is this lot right here. That's 64 Wall. So this was one large parcel with a structure in the middle that was torn down. They divided this property. This is currently being developed, and this is now vacant. So it was sold as two separate parcels.
Okay, so the pool on this lot almost matches.
Correct. Yep. So again, this amended order for 62 Walsh, essentially just to create an additional piece of building on that, under that existing order of conditions.
That's all. For the public. Any questions from the public on this one?
So we move to issue the,
Close the hearing and issue the amended order. Close the hearing and issue the amended order.
I will second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That was easy. No, the next one's not too bad either, so I'd be happy to move when you're ready to move. Just let me know and we'll.
Did you have a recommendation on that, Jack?
No, I don't usually recommend.
I don't think we've ever had one of these, but a person connection to the next lot.
Yeah.
We ready for Paul here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. On behalf of the applicant, 62 Wall Street LLC, which property is located at 64 Wall Street, before you with another amended order of conditions for essentially the reconfiguration and redevelopment of a parcel in which you have already issued an order of conditions for 64 Wall Street. So this, and this was not done, this was done actually by site design. So this is the approved order of conditions for 64 Wall Street. 62 Wall Street is this parcel here that we just spoke about, and this was approved as a standalone parcel of land, which had a cottage and a garage, a proposed dwelling, a gazebo, a pool, and a shed on that particular property. So this is the approved notice of intent, which was filed, approved order of conditions, which is currently on record for 64 Wall Street. So what we are looking to do is amend this order by, again, incorporating the land at 62 Wall Street and 64 Wall Street into one, essentially, development. And at the end of the day, you would not have this large structure in the middle. You wouldn't have the cottage and the garage in the front. What you would have is simply, in addition to the existing dwelling on 62 Wall Street, which would be in this area here, you would have a proposed garage in the front. You'd have the proposed pool in the second dwelling in the back of the property. With regard to the grades, they're similar to, they match essentially what was approved previously under this order of conditions. They also match the grading that's being done on, and I don't even know what address that property now is, but this is now the property that's being developed, which is a dwelling here, pool, and a secondary dwelling on this case here. So the grading for this lot and this lot now tie together and are in accordance with the plan that you previously approved. But essentially what we have done is, instead of two freestanding structures, we now have one structure which would bridge the line between 62 and 64. You'd have the garage in the front, the pool, and the dwelling in the backside of the property. There is, on the backside of 62, a retaining wall that's back in this area. We would need to continue that wall along this area here just to match the grades coming within that area. And then there's a small little lip here where the pool area is, but for the most part, you have free flow. It would be a foundation, non-infill foundation, floodgates on both of the addition to the existing dwelling,
the proposed dwelling in the back, and then the pool area would essentially match existing grades along the front, small amount of fill in the middle here, which would tie to what's being done on the abutting property here. Walsh, and you'd have free flow around the backside or through the property. Again, it's a site completely located within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and there's no other resource area on the site. We did also, this is kind of a condensed version of what's happening here. There is I believe in your packet, a full landscape plan for the entire property, which was submitted and is just a little bit more detailed location, but the grades all match. Again, one structure, parking, shed, garage, pool, spa, and the dwelling located back here. The dwelling, the house, the cottage, and the proposed addition all would be at the appropriate flood elevation and match what's out there right now. The garage would be lower, essentially set at grade, and the shed would be essentially lower, set at existing grade. And that is the amendment to 64 Walsh. So essentially, at the end of the day, 62 and 64 become merged, or they are merged now as one property for the purposes of zoning, the purposes of ownership, but essentially we'll have two orders of conditions. I'll have the order of condition for 62, and I'll have the order of condition for 64, which will then tie together. I think it's ultimately, I don't know, if you look at, I think it's less intense when you kind of just look at what was under the single lot scenario. That's what was approved previously. And then this is what now is proposed. I do believe it is a little, I think, less intense with regard to the amount of building footprint and so forth. You've now essentially got the building connection here. You do have this area that was the gazebo, pool, and shed is now occupied here, and you've got a smaller structure in the front of the lot. Site is tied to town water, tied to town sewer. And similar, we do have a condition on 62 that any of the no improvements are tied to a roof drain or subdrain system, and we would expect that would be the same case for 64. And as I said, it's all would be designed in compliance with the flood zone regulations with regard to the floodgates and free flow across the property.
How high is the retaining wall you mentioned in the corner on the line? Is that
This is actually on the low side here. I'm at 4.8 in the. It's about a foot or so. It's only about a 1 foot section in here because the pool area is at 5.8 and I'm here at 4.8. This patio up here is actually up at 6.9, but we're basically this was all patio in here. We're removing all of this patio and then stepping down, and this would be at a lower, would be down at grade, which would then tie in. So the grade around the structures themselves, the front of the site's at about elevation 4, the dwelling first floor is at 7.5, and then the yard is about 5.5, the pool area is at 5.8, and then this dwelling would be at 7.5 also, and then the entire backside here would all be natural ground, 4.5 in that particular area back there. So maybe about 1 foot here, less than 2 feet in this particular area over here, because the existing grade there is at about 3.64, and you're going up to 5.8.
Is there a potential flooding for that neighbor to cover this?
No, right now it's actually the way this is set up right now. Everything is contained and pulled in this area here. There's actually there is no issue with this area right here, and you wouldn't have anything coming. None of this would be sheeting that way. It would be sheeting back into the property itself. The lot is there's actually a little low area right now back in this corner, but that would still be maintained. You'd basically be putting the dwelling in this particular area right there. Yeah. We've had no issues with the work that was done on this one, and I said that's got a small elevated patio in the back, and there's been no issues. This property actually was just, I think, recently redeveloped, and there was a garage, I think, put up on the front on this property over here just recently.
Well, we have to have kind of our standard pool conditions about, we we wouldn't want any chlorine in there after, a certain time and, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing with pools in the land subject to coastal zone flowage, whether you're treating them any
We haven't
different.
seen a whole lot.
Yeah.
We've been kind of treating the same where they can't be drained or discharged to the area, but we've been starting to add that restriction that
Okay.
all chemicals treatment cease 3 weeks prior to any draining, and that nothing can be used until after the first of May.
Yeah, 'cause in this area, you don't want floodwaters coming over the pool and mixing.
So 64 Walsh, which was approved in December, the order was issued January of 2016. This order permits the demolition of the existing structure, construction of a new structure, garage, second dwelling, gazebo, pool, and associated grading, landscaping, and utility land subject to coastal storm flowage. Waivers are not required for this project. The area falls outside of any required NHESP review. Yeah, there was no, the existing order had a pool, but did not have any specific wording with regard to the pool.
6 months or so.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But that, you're amending the order condition, so you can add additions.
Yeah, but I'm saying, the existing order does not have, it's silent on it. Yeah.
Do we generally require them to be then drained outside of our jurisdiction, or then, in this case, that may be drained into a truck and carted off because,
Yeah, because you couldn't drain this outside your jurisdiction.
It would seem kind of ironic to drain
Yeah.
a pool into an area.
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
you tried to drain a
Let it
pool
go
in this
anywhere.
area, the only place that it's going to go is to the neighbors, so it's, I would think there's something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm like,
You know?
and do these storm drains go to?
And there's nothing in Walsh. I don't think there's any storm drainage in Walsh. There is,
Whatever's there.
Yeah.
We don't have any distance to groundwater issues on this, or is it hard to?
The 2-foot separation of groundwater only applies to vegetated wetlands.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah.
It is not a standard of the flood zone.
Okay.
Other questions?
It's not the interest contained by the flood zone.
Right. Other questions? Questions from the public? Everything we need?
So, yes, we do. So tonight, we close the issue of the issue of the pool condition.
Okay, make that motion.
Yeah, move to close with the addition of the pool condition.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
I think there needs to be a more creative name for the second dwelling on that property, because I don't know where it's the second anymore.
It's definitely
Yeah. It's gonna be beautiful. I mean,
Yeah. So the property will run right through the middle of the living room, isn't it?
well, that will go away. In fact, I think they just recorded a merger certificate to kind of bring everything into equal.
So let's do that. Okay, so, okay. Barb,
No. I
Barbara.
think I recused myself on the original.
You're keeping me up? Gotta hurry up here. 48 West Comic Road.
Okay. Again, for the applicant, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, this is an amended order of conditions for 48 West Comet Road. Applicant is Leonard Barbieri, who at the time was the applicant but not the owner. He is now the owner of the property. This one is pretty simple. It's we came to the commission and got approval for redevelopment of the site, which is picking up the existing structure and then relocating it on the parcel. It was completely outside of the 50-foot no-build. No waivers were required. It did go to NHESP, and there was a no-take with conditions issued with regard to staking and stripping of the topsoil, reusing the topsoil, and so forth. So essentially, to be easy, what we've had here, the dwelling here was originally designed right up against the backside of the 50-foot setback. It's just been taken, pulled forward, and twisted a small amount. It's essentially the exact same plan with regard to infrastructure. It's just that the building has been taking, it was running parallel to the 50-foot setback. It's now just askew and facing a little bit different on West Comet Road. The existing area of disturbance and the proposed area of disturbance are the exact same. We did refile with NHESP, and they did issue a new no-take letter with the same conditions as they had originally, based on this current proposal. And let me see if I can, yes, so this is, it's a smaller version, but this is what was originally approved. The building was here, parallel to the 50-foot setback. It's now been picked up, tweaked, and pulled this way, and it's a little bit further away from actually the 50-foot setback on the subject property. Everything else is the same. Area of disturbance is the same, as I had said, and we do have NHESP approval of this revised site plan. If I could add one component into this based on some things that have happened since the time I filed this, they've had some problems with the existing well, which was basically right up against the existing structure and located here on the site. I have applied to the Board of Health and been issued a new well permit, which would put the well over along the eastern property line, outside of the 50-foot no-build, and I would like to incorporate that into the amended order if I could, that the relocation of the existing well would be part of this amended order. And I do have a, like I said, as I said, I do have a well permit, and we are going to re-drill the well on this, outside the 50, inside the 100, but on the eastern side of the property line. And be happy to answer any questions that you may have. As I said, we do have the revised NHESP letter, which essentially said the same exact thing. It just acknowledges the new plan.
Those conditions are still there.
Appreciate that. Questions? Questions from the public? Okay. So, would someone like some, do we have everything we need? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion for the addition of the well in the application?
You can close an issue all at once. Motion to close an issue.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Top water, shampoo.
Oh, sorry.
We have to actually sign the last order of conditions and we're recused in practice.
I've done that. Where are we here? Public meeting. Minor mods, Burke, 37 Gardner Road.
So, Brian had to Stan tonight, and I told Stan that I would tell this man as well. He was learning to feature. If there are any questions, you can kind of direct to Brian, and we'll try to get it from there. Essentially, what we have here, for those who don't remember, on the Burke property, is they had permitted the core logs from the property line that abuts the stone gabions for the Pimline's Point House. On this end, they permitted the run of core logs the entire way to the stairs that are there, and there was a large sandy area that they didn't want to disturb because it was full of sandy plantings and was fairly stable. And during this winter, it unstabilized and eroded, and they would like to extend the core logs through that section as well. So there's a 44-foot extension that will tie into the carbon steel bulkhead that's there instead of just the loose sand. So we felt that
Makes sense.
it's a minor modification because it's an extension of previously permitted work. It is not new scope work. So it would be subject to the same conditions as the other core logs that are there. It's just adding an additional amount of enough skin change number.
Have they been required to submit storm reporting on their core logs or anything?
They are
Existing wood bulk.
not installed as of yet.
So nothing's installed.
Correct. So they are gearing up to install the other ones. So once they are installed, then yes, they are subject to storm reporting. At this point, they permitted it at the end of last year to install it this spring, essentially. And then through the winter, the area that is in stable eroded against that steel bulkhead. And they lost a bunch, so they were just asking to extend that to tie into that bulkhead there to give them a little extra stability.
So it was 2 years ago. Wait, yeah, I feel like I want to do a site visit out here. Just because it's been so long since.
If you have an open order, you can always go to take a site visit.
Yeah.
They don't nourish this one either, do they? Is this one?
That was 2 years ago.
There was no requirement.
Right.
But Stan is asking for 6 inches over the entire length, just to add a little bit more protection and longevity to the fiber lines.
Because they had actual marsh on a lot of this beach.
Right. I remember it.
There's a temporary plywood that's being installed during installation along that
So,
landward marsh.
to be clear, they do also have the storm permit, so it's the 40-mile-an-hour storm. That's there, and it requires 200 yards to the east and to the west of those areas. There's the photographs, pedestrian access, and then they are also required to show any impacts to the salt marsh. So they have to survey those salt marsh areas. But I had to do it was 2014.
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah.
I just feel like
It was.
since I saw the beach, it's been a long time. And nothing has been installed, so I kind of like to see the changes.
They're not changing any of the other proposal. It's extending.
Yes, but the beach could have, like, has there been changes to the bluff since December 2014? I would imagine yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this isn't the vegetated, bank restoration. This was just logs kind of on back up against the bank or something, wasn't
Exactly. It was going directly on the
it?
face
It's
of the
very
bank.
simple, yeah.
That was there.
Well, it seems like keeping them covered would be a good idea if they want them to hold up.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems
I just,
strange not to have continued it to the bulkhead anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should go see this one. They are a property that does vista pruning, et cetera, and I think does things that might be destructive to the front edge of that bank that maybe need to be looked at before we extend this, would be my feeling. Since it's been 2 years with no activity.
Wouldn't hurt to go look at it.
Yeah.
That length of time, I'm curious.
Yeah, you can certainly go look at it. And again, anything that holds an open order, the commissioner has the ability to go inspect within reasonable hours. Is the way it starts. So no 4 a.m. show-ups to check out the bank. But it's during normal business hours, you can say you're free to knock on the door and inspect. And with no permit. So
Right. I mean,
we could certainly go.
here's a question for you. Would you want to go before you made a decision on this added links? I mean, we approved the.
I mean, and they've just been dumping sand over here previously.
Yes, the strategy to keep it on that corner is just stockpile sand and try to find
Can I ask a question for clarification, just because I wasn't sure if is it just the extension of what was permitted, or are they actually asking for an additional layer as well? So I thought you said there was no additional, just an extension, but I thought in the proposal there was one.
Yeah, east or northeast of the existing stairs, there is a, let's see, it's 50 feet length of a third row.
So up on top of what was, okay.
Is that what's red on the plan here?
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, I think we should go look at this.
We should go look
Yeah.
before because this would give us an
Mhm.
opportunity to
Yep.
add, make corrections if we thought was needed.
Well, this isn't an opportunity to amend the order of conditions. This is a minor modification request. So you're not reconditioning the project.
Right.
This is just
Approved it.
it's essentially a plan change where the conditions would still apply, and the change to the plan is minor enough that the conditions would still be applicable.
In that case, I think I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with that. I'm surprised they didn't continue it to the bulkhead. Like I said, it just seemed like a
Seems like they're setting themselves up
obvious
for
weak
problems.
point. Yeah, and the rock for the road at the other end made sense too, although
And
pretty tapered off there.
previously, you guys were not covering with sand, and now we are covering the entire length with sand.
6 inches.
Right, and there was a lot of marshy spots with actual marsh
beach.
grass up here. I don't know.
It's just interesting that can't really change the order of conditions at this point. It's just, so if you find that, well, I guess we could.
The option that you would have would be, if you really wanted to get into the conditioning of it, is you would simply say that this doesn't fit within the plan change or minor modification, and then you could require the amending of the order, in which case you kind of get the track back, so to say. But you'd also, I think, would want to determine that the change was significant enough that it required an actual hearing instead of just a public meeting.
And they are required to monitor it, right? Do we do that? Yeah. Well, that's good.
Public comment?
I was just going to add, with all due respect, that because there is the extension and the addition of an upper log, and it has been a few years, that a site visit might enable the commission to better determine, is this appropriate as a minor mod, or would you guys want to add additional conditions that would make you ask them to come back so that you could permit it with additional conditions? And I haven't looked at this site really at all, but at least, but that is an option you guys have when someone comes in with a minor mod. You can say, we don't think this fits, we want to add additional conditions, and maybe seeing the site would, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the site. There's something that should and needs to happen and I think that plan is appropriate, but let's look at it. Let's just do it.
I think it's appropriate as well. I mean, but there's a concern. I don't think is there a time constraint problem? Is something that
It's been 2 years.
It hasn't been built yet.
Exactly.
It's tough.
They're all excited. They're all waiting to put it on now. I mean,
I would say, you can, again, we can go view it, number one. I mean, there's a order of conditions that's in place for the project. We can inspect it, I mean, we can leave it out and go inspect it.
Are we going to do it on a Monday? Are we going to continue for 2 weeks?
But what I'm saying is there's no limitation to,
Yeah.
I want to make it clear for any application, whether it's minor mods, certificates, whatever it is, anything that has an open order or an open application, you have the right as commissioners to go inspect it within reasonable hours. Just knock on the door and say, I'm here to do an inspection for the Conservation Commission. So we would call the cops.
Yeah, I'm like, here's my badge.
There's at least.
I'm sensing there might be a concern about the
No, I
sand
wouldn't.
addition and approving the sand addition with a couple of minutes. So I would think that maybe we should take a look at it before we vote.
I think we should hold it. Yeah, hold it. Agreed.
Agreed.
It seems.
Is there since I was not sitting, is there a nourishment component on the original order? Not a covering so much, but there's no nourishment. Huh? No, I know, but I know that there's been sand added to
Yeah,
that
they
corner.
push sand to the corner.
And is that
probably
a non-permitted activity?
I want to say.
Because I think that I was under the assumption that that was in the order of conditions, that there was sand to be added after certain storm events. And I only know this because I take care of the property next door.
Right, and I don't know that.
You talking about
I'm talking about right in this corner where the new rolls are going. There's
Yeah.
I think that there are some nourishment requirements tied to it.
I think so.
Yeah.
A different filing, right? Yeah. So there is a sand component, not covering, but there's definitely sand that is permitted to be delivered to the site,
Because
right?
we actually have been thinking about, have been out to the site fairly recently, because we just recently did a permit for work on the steel bulkhead
Yeah.
and replacement that was there. So we're not typically that, so. Not that we're looking at this site specifically, but now that John and I have went through. But we can certainly go look at it, and it seems to me that there's enough questions we should probably take.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not going.
Monday site, Monday.
Yeah, it'll be the next one.
We have, isn't that the bluff, Wisconsin
Yeah.
bluff?
Okay. So, continue that one. Fort Gang, 2 Winoma Way.
Thank you for the applicant, Paul Santos, Nantucket Surveyors. Applicant being Teresa Fortgang, owner of property located at 2 Winoma Way, which is out in Tom Nevers. It's a existing 10,000 square foot fully developed parcel of land located at the end of Bosworth Road, which abuts Paper Street, known as Atlantic Boulevard. Coastal resource area is the coastal bank, which essentially bisects Atlantic Boulevard. So we have a 25-foot no disturb, 50-foot no build, and 100-foot jurisdictional buffer zone on the subject property. We have a open order of conditions, which entailed some additions to the existing structure, addition of a shed, and some landscaping features on the subject property. We're before you tonight requesting a minor modification in order to reconstruct a step timber retaining wall that was noted on the existing survey, step timber retaining wall and stairs, which is in poor condition, and we're looking to just reconstruct that in essentially the same location, albeit kind of a mirror image of where it is right now. We're proposing a dry laid patio at grade along the backside of an addition, and then there is just some driveway and access modifications to the existing shed and the front walkway to the existing site. All of this work occurs, the patio, the walkway, the driveway, and so forth, all occurs outside the 25 and also outside the 50. The small, it's a low retaining wall, less than 4 feet high. A part of it is within the 50-foot no build, but it's outside the limit of 25-foot no disturb. So the existing wall, it's a tiered wall in this location. This will be a single proposed 6x6 PT wall, just in the same general location. We've asked for this under a minor modification to the existing order of conditions, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Questions from the public? Jeff, you have a recommendation on this one?
Yeah, I think it's within the parameters of
Okay.
Move to issue the minor mod.
Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Monomoy, nope, yeah, Monomoy Creek Road, nominee trust, 12 Monomoy Creek Road.
Hi, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. Representing the applicant. The minor mod is for some landscaping details, updates. There's a lot going on here, but let me just walk you through. The order of conditions expires in May, end of May, and we've requested an extension, or actually May 14th. So we've requested a one-year extension. That's a little bit later on your agenda. And things are wrapping up right now. Single-family dwelling has been constructed. The pool and pool cabana are being finalized currently, and so things are coming to a head, and they want to get some of the landscaping underway currently. And some of the minor updates that are being proposed right now, it's basically resulting in a significant reduction in lawn area. And so they're proposing a patio on the backside of the house, dry laid patio. There is a fire pit in the patio that's outside the 50-foot buffer zone. There's a minor reconfiguration of the parking court area. Again, that's pervious. Reconfiguration of some of the abutting retaining walls, and significantly expanding some of the naturalized revegetation areas. The garage is being reduced from 600 square feet down to 500 square feet, and there is to balance grades, there is a proposed retaining wall that will jut off the east side of it outside the 50-foot buffer zone. It kind of comes out in an L-shaped.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep, that's it, right along the property line. So there's no changes to the limit of work. It's being kind of shrunk in. The lawn area is being reduced by 5,861 square feet. The northerly revegetation area is going to be restored with bayberry, highbush blueberry, arrowwood, and eastern red cedar. In addition to replanting native grasses. And then there's 2 additional native grass areas being expanded southwest of the dwelling and behind the pool in cabana area. So the revegetation areas in totality are just under 4,400 square feet. That effectively reviews the minor modifications. And just to give you an update, they want to get the patio completed by the end of the month, and then everything is going to be pulled out, and then we're going to be able to start working on restoring that driveway, getting rid of that gabion basket in May, and planting that all up. But there's a pinch point there to get out back, so they want to wrap up and get out of there.
Any questions?
So I will say, just to put it on the record, because I know this is a very popular site, with this coming in, my last inspection of this site actually did on Saturday. Ran out that couple of foot lots, so stopped nobody in town. Took a look at it, so now it looks like we had issues with silt fences and stuff before, but all their silt fences were up. It's definitely one of the cleaner I've seen this site. And it would be in compliance with the original permit, so.
And the original permit had a species list, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the extension of the plantings would be the same species.
Are you creating a new footpath to go to the existing footpath, or what's?
No, it's an existing footpath. It's just being narrowed.
Oh, okay.
So that was all within a previously brush cut area.
It's a confusing site.
It'll be once it's all completed. The as-built is simple.
Oh, God, really?
A lot of pauses.
Any further questions? Comments from the public? Exactly our recommendation.
Pretty standard.
Pretty standard. So I'm going to make that.
Move to issue the minor mod.
Second.
All those in favor?
Not to be a real pain, but if you wanted to, since Brian has already talking about it, if you wanted to take the extension on the order.
Oh,
then
sure.
underneath it, now too, we can do that at the same time. So they're requesting a 1-year extension, so essentially go from May 14th of 2017 and be extended to May 14th of 2018.
Move to issue 1-year extension as well.
Back on as well, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good.
Thank you very much.
We were just on that.
All right. Certificates of compliance. Emmy Real Estate Trust. 2 North Star Lane.
So this was for redo of the property. That there, we accepted our site inspection and part of the unit we did today. And everything is in substantial compliance with no ongoing conditions. And I would recommend that it could be issued a certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. 5 on a Dime LLC, 8 Pilgrim Court.
All right, so this one's a little trickier. Not trickier in the sense that it's not compliant. Is the request in front of us is for a partial certificate of compliance because in subdividing and changing lot lines and moving lot lines around, they created a little sliver lot that was subject to the original order of conditions that doesn't have any work on it, and it's moved to a different lot. So what they've asked to do is get a partial certificate of compliance on the new triangular sliver that closes it out there, keep the door open, the work is going to be and then moving forward. So we're looking, my recommendation would be to issue the partial certificate of compliance specifically for lot 26. It's one of those lawyering shenanigans, actual project.
Okay. So move to issue partial
compliance
certificate of compliance for lot 26.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
The lot 26, that part of it is 11 compliance. So it's one of those, just the line bent enough to give some other lot, probably enough lot area to cover.
Right.
Probably some ground cover shenanigans there.
Orders of conditions.
I like how Brock's Court's on there. That was optimistic.
I know.
No, so we list them there not because we're feeling optimistic, but if perchance something would have happened in
Exciting.
is if you guys wanted to liberate it, it's a listed agenda item. So if it gets into an appeal situation, if someone doesn't like it, then it's been listed and posted, so we don't have at least an open meeting law shenanigan. So we typically just list them all now to avoid that because with open meeting law having changed a couple of years ago. I would rather list it and not do anything than do something and not have it listed again.
I think they're going for the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's longest open order of.
No progress.
I sent them an email this week and I looked it up. And it was, the Brock's Court applications were filed on October 30th of 2015.
Really?
Yes. Wow. So I jokingly said to them, kind of jokingly, that I don't understand the reason why their application is taking longer than every Wisconsin's love application. A far less interesting project.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's getting a little.
I'll have to talk to Steve about that.
Oh.
Okay. 66 Westchester.
All right, so this one we closed last time. So like with all of them, we don't necessarily have to issue it tonight, but if we don't issue something tonight, we'll have to have a special meeting sometime next week. So from the notes I had, this was the project. I don't know why I have to explain it because I'm sure everyone remembers. For kind of that site redo with a pool equipment, and then kind of the hot topic of conversation wasn't the invasive species management, but the repair to the pipe from the catch basin that currently discharges into the lake. So, please want to read if they can. Our standard there's a condition about herbicide that was specifically asked for.
Well, we didn't put any You can't really condition. Well, weren't there like a couple of silt, like some sort of silt traps along that?
There is a deep sump
Deep sump.
catch basin and manhole on this property that's, the water is collected. We get the plan out.
Yeah, no, I got it. I mean, we don't
It's
have
collected
to.
there, and then there's a deep sump that's on the property that would have to get pumped out on occasion
Right.
to get the sediment out of it.
But can we condition it on this, or I mean, because
Well,
I know
it's
that's
located,
sort of.
it's located on the property.
All right, so
That's there, so it's essentially their
I
response.
know, right, but it's
The catch basin and the pipe are kind of the responsibility of the town. However, you could certainly ask them to maintain the piece that's on the property because it's not within, it's currently not within easement where they're delegating that right to the town. So they're essentially kind of assuming responsibility for the components on their property, on their property, not the catch basin of the road.
all right. Well, I say let's condition it because
I think you're right.
there's it'll be another set of eyes on it, and then it might,
And they would
Yeah,
probably do the
because
other
right
ones.
now when we say it's like the towns,
Yeah, then
it's ours because we're the only town entity signing off on that pipe. The previous DPW owner sent a little blurb,
Yeah, previous.
and as far as we know, it's not on any town plan as road drainage. So I am very concerned with signing off on this pipe without another town board, whoever is going to be maintaining it, giving a plan. But I've been saying that the whole time, so I don't think that's news to anybody.
Well, I'd just like to see these things get cleaned up so the thing functions properly.
So, I guess to those ends, you would have a 26. Would you like a lot of catch basins require a yearly cleaning?
Yeah, yearly cleaning, and then, I mean, that should clean out most of the solids, right, road runoff, and then,
Yeah, so 26 would be, yearly cleaning of the deep sump drainage structure is required with notice provided to the commission prior to its clearing.
How ironic. That would be. I mean, the whole discussion was the previous one, the advantages of it not working very well.
right, I know, that's the rub.
And now we're concerned about this one working very well.
Well, I think that at least if it's going to be draining from the road down, the sump should be cleaned out.
Well, definitely.
Right. I mean, we want to, it's not always,
Otherwise,
it's not only
nothing
just so it
touch it.
flows well, it's so
Right.
that the pollutants are cleaned out of
At
it.
least we keep solids from going into the wetland.
No, I like the clean up.
Yeah.
I like the clean up.
So-
I find it interesting.
So then, in thinking about that, I guess, trying to think of other conditions, I mean, I guess the other thing we talked about a bit, and it's probably good that we're going over this now, I guess I'm thinking we should probably also add a 27, that kind of speaks to the end of the pipe, that may read something like, you would have photographs that are there, but anything that shows evidence of scour at the end of the pipe caused by the flow from water from that pipe will require an amended order of conditions to mitigate that condition. So when bring them back with, you're causing a scour into the wetland area
yeah.
from that water, you need to come back so we can address how to fix it.
So should they be submitting photos then?
Yes. Well, you have to have a trigger, so,
20.
yeah, this would be number 27. So it would be
Okay.
photographs
That's number 20.
That's, 20 is
Yeah.
photographs.
shall be provided
That's what it looks like.
Well, you have some in 20 already, Jim.
You have
I
20,
missed
Chris
that.
was saying that.
Pretty close.
Yes, so, you know
So
what?
if photographs identify evidence of scour,
It's already there.
Photographs of the drainage discharge pipe show evidence of scour or significant channeling. The applicant shall file an amended order of conditions request for new notice of intent to abate the condition. They're going to have to come back. So you've provided the photographs, and if you see
Yeah.
some sort of weird gully, then the trigger would be some sort of new public hearing to recondition that, to fix it. And then they'd have to puzzle out something to fix it.
Okay, so this is,
Okay.
And
That's good.
just to really quickly explain a little bit, they include a notice of intent option, because that way if they prefer to do it under a separate permit, maybe tackle the drainage over again by itself, they would have that as an option. So we're trying to amend it. And amended orders don't automatically extend permits. So if it was at the end of the life of the other permit, maybe easier to just give the notice. So usually it would go about.
okay.
All right, so move to issue as amended.
With the addition of
With the addition of 26 and 20, well, 26 and,
27.
okay, so we did 12, okay.
Second.
Yep.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
aye.
Okay, that passes with Commissioner Harrison opposed.
That's the truth. I would say at some point, before you move on to that, maybe something interesting to maybe bring in one of the two new director or deputy directors of the DPW to ask them to maybe come up with a better way to be dealing with the Westchester drainage areas and how they do comprehensive plan to be dealing with these instead of having the seemingly endless run of pipes across yards.
It's a mess down there.
Something to
There's
think
a
about.
ton of development.
I don't want to try to tackle too many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's on there, sorry.
We should talk to the, who is, have you met him?
Rob, yes, I have met Rob.
Yeah?
He started last month, his name is Rob McNeil.
Okay.
And Chuck Rush, the deputy director. But Rob, they've been with us now for 8 business days.
Okay. Where'd he come from? Good guy?
He is from Millwood, Massachusetts, which is one of the little towns outside of Worcester.
Okay.
He's an engineer too.
Yep, they're both PEs, so they're both licensed engineers, which some haven't had before, that many. I'll be honest, my dealings with him at this point are pretty limited. I have a meeting with him tomorrow to talk about some issues, so I'll have more to update him then, but we certainly can invite him sometimes to say hello, introduce him to the farm,
You got right on it. Okay. Bellevue nominee Trust 119R, Hill Point.
So we want to talk about, sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were going to say what I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I'll
go.
Ladies
first. Go ahead, Jeff.
It sounded to me from the discussion that we were looking to draft a conditions form to address connecting the stairs to the other stairs on some sort of material. We could require mowing mat, you can rewire something.
See if they can.
Connecting surface.
Well, all right, so the end of the
I think
discussion,
you should get a little more specific than connecting service. That could be that could
Beach
be-
towel.
Well, a
Bunch
connecting
of
service
sticks.
would literally be like a 2x10 set on the ground that someone walks across. And if that's not what you're looking for, I think you should provide a little specificity to what it is. Maybe they call me
I'm just thinking
All right,
about
are we-
that.
are we-
Taking rocks down the bluff.
Yeah, so much for that idea.
so can we condition something, the discussion kind of led us to an elevated, non-structure removable thing that would connect the bottom of the top set of stairs to the top of the bottom set of stairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that possible to do, Paul? Is that something that you feel like
Yeah,
is
we'll call
something?
We
Okay,
can-
do we need some sort of intermediate
And then
posts
be
in there or
approved
something?
by
to-
staff.
Right, you must need something. 30 feet long of a span, you're gonna need something there, right?
You're gonna need at least 2 or 3 rows of the 4x4s or something.
Right, okay, so,
Yeah, why do we need that?
Well-
Because they're gonna walk
Well,
across it anyway, so, and then it's getting taken out each year. I just don't know that the elevation.
Well, we want the vegetation to grow underneath. Otherwise, you're just gonna, if it's on the ground, it's just gonna kill all the vegetation and,
Yeah.
It's a sand walkway now. There's nothing there, is there? I mean, there's stuff on the side.
There was plants down there.
yeah, there were some
Like
plants
dead
there.
smack in the
I don't
middle of
think,
the
I
I
don't
don't
think
think
that
they use that
they
as
don't.
much as,
No, they had the other one.
Yeah, they're sharing the stairs, so that way down is not really used. I mean, it would be precarious
yeah.
anyway, right? I don't know.
I don't know why I'm picturing equal disturbance of the plants needing to put, like, posts in to elevate a platform versus something that you can roll out or roll in, but.
Yeah.
I would see a big difference, because if you've got something with a couple of posts in the ground, you're doing a few square inches or maybe a square foot.
Well, the
compared to-
initial disturbance, but then after that, the plant's gonna grow
Yeah,
around it. and then-
yeah.
I don't know.
Complicated. I don't see,
Well,
with the
this is
insulation
why-
post, I don't see you're gonna be able to lay anything down, rolling it.
No, you won't. It's going to be like a plank.
So
It's
now we're
gonna
gonna
have
make
to
it
be
structural.
another aluminum thing.
That's why I had suggested those aluminum gangways, if you set it on the bottom step of the top one.
Right.
The top step, because you may be able to capitalize on how those are anchored.
Well, it's still,
Yeah,
but
then
it's
it would
30
just-
feet long, you know?
Oh, now we were worried about a 20-foot gangway being removed. Now you gotta do a 30-foot. Because the crews, you can do
Suspension
20
would be really nice. Nice little arch.
Yeah, I mean, you could do 215s with
Yeah.
some, you need some sort of intermediate anchor, I guess.
Yeah,
So
they'll
then
need
we're
that.
talking
Something
about
like something in the middle, probably.
Do you want it elevated or do you want it there? Because right now I have the applicant shall be required to connect the 2 sets of stairs by a seasonally removed, non-structural, and then by stop. So,
I'd like to see elevated.
I'd go for elevated.
I kind of like the elevated, because it just seems you're going to be.
well, if
Schlepping
you
up
put it
the
in
other
as
end.
elevated and they can't do it, they can always come back to
Right.
Mhm.
All right.
I've got 2 posts at the end of the stairs, and I've got 2 posts at the beginning of the stairs, so I got a frame I can start with.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can figure something out.
Mhm.
it. All right, so that one, the applicant shall be required to connect the 2 sets of stairs by a seasonally removed, non-structural, like
There you go.
Suspended rope
walkway.
Suspended rope.
There you go.
I like that.
I like
You can
it.
do like a slack line.
89-year-old
Yeah.
to be able to drive.
Can you
No
imagine?
problem.
I'm
Do
just
you want to
like,
put rope bridges, Paul? Where you know, there's 2
I
ropes
think
on
it's
the
up
side.
all the way down the beach.
Nobody goes.
Yeah, zip line. A little basket, like a Nantucket light chip basket.
All right.
I like that flare, not just a basket.
You crossed the Niobrara River in a hanging basket on a wire.
Condition 20 is now, the applicant shall be required to connect the 2 sets of stairs by a seasonally removed, non-structural elevated walkway.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of oxymorons in there. Non-structural elevated walkway.
Obstacle course.
Yeah, I know. This is like a ropes course he's got there now.
You just have to jump from post.
Otherwise, I think it's good.
Okay.
I'd say move to issue as amended.
All those
Second.
in-
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passing unanimously. Good luck. I like a zip line. A zip line slide.
It's a new
like, better off
thing
with
for
the
the
magic
commission,
carpet
but
or
we're seeing a
something.
ton of them now.
16 East Creek Road.
You should just go for like a chairlift, Paul. What's that?
Chairlift, that's
like a ski area.
No, those things that go up the stairs like this.
Yeah, like a grandma chair.
The easy stair, yeah.
That's cool.
Thanks, everyone. I'll see you.
We'll have one going to go outside of the block.
Land bank. 16 East Creek Road.
All right. So just really quickly, there's an additional finding on this one. I just want to memorialize because it's not with the buffer zone to it. It's in the buffer zone to all of the other resource areas. There's a second additional finding that the lot contains land from the closest to the floor, but it's not in the project period. Someone who's trapped. And then I couldn't really think of any conditions for.
Consider the addition of a possible handrail.
Handrail?
I think if we were to do that up in the permit overview,
Yeah.
I would prefer to put it in there, say this order permits the installation of a brick walkway, patio, and bench with optional handrail support.
Yeah.
I'm trying to condition whether it be,
Right.
really it's their option if they decide not to do it.
Perfect. Okay.
It's just weird.
It's not the HTC. So what would you like to make?
Well, I was thinking, the
Yeah.
HDC may disagree with the handrail.
Yeah, I'm feeling they're not going to help that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But check that out. But I think if you give them an option, if it's there, if it's permit, if it's not there, it's still in compliance, I think it makes it simple.
Perfect.
Move the issue as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Good. Do the extension, other business, approval of minutes. Everyone happy with minutes? Approved by unanimous consent. Enforcement actions.
Oh, this is not necessarily our enforcement action. We'll have an update on a few of them very soon that are going out. Other enforcement actions of our regulations kind of this week include that we have been out in conjunction with the Board of Health for about 2 weeks now regular fertilizer inspections. We are not yet into, it sounds weird, we are not into fertilizer season as of yet. What's that?
Saturday.
15th.
Tax day.
Sunday.
Sunday.
That is the first eligible day for fertilizer. However, even just today, we had 3 compliance checks, and someone that should be taxing their monthly stars, they didn't walk away with a ticket, but we had no way to prove that they had been putting fertilizer down, but sitting on the side of the road next to the truck, just against the equipment, was a nice bag of plant tone. And as we all know, plant tone is a non-compliant product. It contains phosphorus. There is a version of plant tone now that does not contain phosphorus. However, this was not that one. So, again, there were no areas that were visibly applied to. They weren't actively applying. They didn't have any open out to apply it. They were really possessing it. So we issued them a warning.
Have they mulched on top of it already?
No. It looks like they may have just been getting started. So we lingered around for about 20 minutes to see what happened. And then on the way back to the meeting here today, I drove through again to see what they were doing. And the bag was still in the cab of the truck. And we informed them that carrying it with them was a very bad idea. It was a great way to get a red flag if you were doing something you shouldn't. So that went forward. We had a couple other issues that were there as well with dealing with compliance issues and guys working where stuff may or may not have been happening. We have another line applicator today, which is compliant to do right now. But we are actively out checking because we're before the season and we'll be continuing to check throughout the season. But it's always nice to give updates that's there. So
These are easy ones to catch.
yeah, plant tone is like my best friend
Oh,
because
right.
plant tone is literally you see it, and if the bag is open and I see you have a handful of it, I just start writing my ticket because there's no argument to be had because the odds of someone generating a soil test are so small that if I have to tear up the ticket, I'm okay with it.
Right.
It's stuff that's there. To those ends, for those of you who use landscapers, who have friends that landscape, or have landscape on their own property, our first field training session ever as part of our licensure program is on the 20th of April, so next Thursday. Anyone can sign up. You guys are all welcome to attend. It's out of the Delta Fields at 8:30 in the morning. Topics included will be how to take soil tests and kind of look at the results, how to read a bag of fertilizer, how to calibrate the spreader.
Yeah, that's good. That's
So,
really good.
Come pick me up. I'll get you a coffee.
feel free.
No, it should be good.
We're going to try to film it too so people can see it, but it's instead of having people sit through a really awful video that skates over most people's heads, we're going to try to attack it in a way of 90% of the users are going out with instructions and bags of fertilizer from someone that tells them to go, go fertilize 60 for Hulbert. We want to make sure that the guys that are going can do things that they need to do.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction as far as practical kind of field demonstrations,
Which is
you know,
what
and
we
that's
need.
really what
Otherwise
we need,
it's
because a lot of what's been sort of put out there has been in a classroom setting, and it's lost on
8:30 on the
majority.
20th. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that they went through, like the last class that we had with the folks from UConn came up and taught the class. Most of our users don't need to understand how to look at the different colors of grass and do like spectral analysis by color to determine nutrient deficiencies. It's not, for the big users, it's probably very interesting. I thought it was very interesting, but for the average Joe who's just working for a paycheck, landscaping, it's total waste of information that would be better to focus on how they should be doing their job. That's good. And please, if anyone sees anyone fertilizing and has any issues or questions about it, please let our office know. All of our complaints are anonymous. We'll go check it out as quick as we can. We can't everywhere, so as many eyes and ears as we see.
Jeff, I just wanted to ask, whatever happened with that project where they put throw all the stones down over the bluff that created those?
So,
The lake.
I thought we were going to go see that in 2 weeks.
I wanted to see them.
so well, we can go to the other side of Pivot, it's just right around the corner from
Okay.
it. The sluiceway is no longer there.
The sluiceway is where they were firing the things.
Yeah.
Right, but the stones are there. They must
We
be.
have received a response from their legal representative, and they said that by the next meeting, they would have a full response and would be present to answer questions. So we will see them at our next hearing.
Gotcha. Okay. We should see it.
What are they going to do?
Again,
They're going to get all those rocks. One thing, get those rocks in there. Another thing,
Yeah, they're going downhill.
if you wanted to, just throwing it out there, if you go inspect or you wanted to take a look at the Wilkinson Array at 48 Shiloh Pond Road, and you started walking towards the Burks, you can't miss it.
Gotcha.
There's a big shiny timber bulkhead that's shining a green wood for what they replaced, and if you look behind it, you can't help but see the piles themselves.
So was
Don't go at high tide. You
was
won't
the
make it.
was it
I walked on it last time I was there, so.
was the timber wall? Nothing was approved, right?
Well, the timber wall is
It's
something
like
that's been there
existing.
and been
Timber.
replaced.
Okay.
But I have never, ever, and I asked, happened to be on the phone with Steve McKenna of Coastal Zone Management the other day, and I asked him if he had ever heard of anything like this before, and his response was, in 30 years of paying attention to these things, I have not really encountered something that you're describing. It's kind of a unique anomaly, because it literally looks like someone was building a stone sitting wall, a nice like flagstone wall up on the property, and instead of taking the like 3 tons of stone that they were going to use away, they're like, still behind the bulkhead,
Right.
it'll be fine. And they just built their little sluiceway and offloaded it there, and then took the sluiceway down. So it's pretty good.
That's hard to figure out why, but
It's one of those things that you think you've seen it all.
Yeah.
Something like that happens and you realize that, no.
It was free fill.
there's one born every minute.
It is a good
Especially
one.
on this island. And arrive.
Okay, reports. No CPC person. MPDC, we had a quick meeting last 2 nights ago. Nothing about it. Mosquito control.
I'm pretty sure we have a meeting next week, so I'm gonna have to check that calendar, and then we start up for the season.
Okay.
Mosquitoes are coming.
Yep.
Mosquitoes are coming.
I actually took a photo of one kayak, one canoe filled with water by Stump Pond. I was just like, this is where the mosquitoes live.
For sure.
It's like filled with water, yeah.
We don't have any big like tire dumps anymore, though. Really.
There's so much trash on this island though now. The side of the roads are littered.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Any commission comments?
What do you do though?
Staff administration report?
Yeah, I just have one quick one, just as a reminder. This is really more focused to Ernie and Ashley. Obviously, yesterday was election day, for those who missed it, but that also means that we are coming into the start of committee turnover season. And I know Ernie and Ashley's terms both end right now on June the 30th. So keep your eyes open for applications, if you guys are interested in renewing for another exciting 3-year term with the Nantucket Conservation Commission. And I would also say, if you are not interested, please let me know. I'm prepared. But also, if you know of anyone who might be interested, and you're not going to come back or reapply, please encourage them to do so. Or if there's someone that you would like to see apply at some point, now's a good time to start that, because that advertisement will probably hit the paper probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks, I would guess. Usually it's right around May, because then they have that crazy system where it gets advertised for a few weeks, you submit, and then they have the first public hearing where they break up the committees, and whoever the applicants are can go and say their piece if they want to, and then they do the next one the next week, and then the week after that they start voting through committee appointments. But that's coming. I say that also because that also means that it's also the time where I get requests from CPC and NPEDC and mosquito control folks. You're on a term for forever with mosquito control.
That's 5 years. I had no idea when I signed up for that.
Well, I don't know.
You're lucky. You said how long?
It's a fine print on that.
5 years.
But I would also say that if people are interested in switching or changing commissions, or don't feel that they have the time to commit to CPC or those things, that's also a good time of year for us to internally change through there. I'd be willing to bet that if you just absolutely couldn't handle mosquito control or wanted to do it, then since you're a conservation commission representative, that your term probably doesn't work quite the same as an at-large appointee. So keep that in mind if one of you guys is really interested in doing CPC. Ian is our current representative, but that's something that we kind of refresh on a yearly basis too. So don't feel obligated to those, but we have to fill our seats. So, as I always threaten, if no one wants to do CPC and no one volunteers, I will randomly pick mine. I am not allowed because I'm not a voting member of the Conservation Commission to represent the board.
Oh, it's just a perfectly timed pause. I will elect someone.
I will make you draw straws.
Well, there was one year we had a really difficult time filling the CPC seat. No one wanted to do it, and it ultimately came down to I'm just going to pick, and then you can explain to them why you can't go to meetings, but I can't handle Neville calling me. And it's a seat that we're statutorily required to fill, so it's not like it's a.
If anyone wants to try MPDC, it's exciting world of transportation.
Oh, God.
Transportation.
You can talk about drainage.
I might take my chances with the hat.
roll that barrel.
One and 6, 1 and 7
As far as I
chance.
know, yes.
That's pretty good, Alex.
Yeah, real quick, before someone says motion to adjourn, just a reminder that 24th is the scheduled date for the SBTF hearing. So we'll do some field viewings in and around that. But I sent everyone the peer reviewers review to look at. The one from the
Interesting, I read parts of it.
Will that be available?
It's on the internet right now for people to see. The Land Council submitted one today that I will either have up today or tomorrow morning, but I'll email it to you guys directly as well. Have questions ready. Obviously, people have them in advance, so when we send them in, it's always helpful that people pass those along. Or if you know people that are interested in commenting, it'd be really great to get as many comments in advance as possible, so people are prepared and have a chance to read as much as they can.
Is that downstairs?
That will be downstairs.
Big room.
It could be one of those amazing hearings that we had 100 people at, or we have 2 people at outside the board and presenters. So, but it will advertise it and post it almost on that.
No problem. No, I have
No
the
weekends or Right. I thought that people might stay after that weekend.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Favor? Aye.
Oh, it's the 30th?
Thank you. So I have